everybody. This is a conversation between Criminal and Dylan Moore. We're talking about the process behind the album Wonder. Here we go. Yeah, so hi Dylan.
Hi.
So this is new. I've never done this before, so we're basically finishing up the record here.
Yes.
It is what's the date today? So we're recording this November 17th. Yeah. So there's no stress to this. I'm not really not looking to like make this into a podcast where it sells a lot of sort of shit.
Yeah, sure.
My question for you is, what's different from the night to this? What do you think is like one of the biggest differences?
Well, the songs are much different.
Yeah,
for sure. A lot more mature songwriting. I think I would say.
Yeah, I think that. Yeah, definitely. I think I've got out of the. I think that the night was more so. This is what I can actually do it, and this is more so now. Okay, if I can do it, why don't I approach it differently? Maybe I think that's what I sort of. It feels like I went that direction.
Yeah, I seem to recall us talking about how, the night was almost kind of like. Here are all the kind of, like, different ways I could almost write a little bit, like it kind of wasn't cohesive in any way in terms of like what kind of songs.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like there was like a rock tune, and then there was like
a slow bluesy type.
Yeah, totally
number.
right. It was just all these like I can write this song, this kind of song, sort of thing. But it was really cool, and I really liked it because we like approached every song differently, and stuff like that. But this is much more cohesive. It's got a whole theme.
That's what I was gonna say. It's more. We're fitting a theme here. The one thing too I got to mention too is that seeing the progression from how we did the night with gear to now, it's like I'm looking at the studio here, and it's a way bigger than it was before, and I feel like now you have more tools at your fingertips now. And what do you think? How does that make you get from point A to point B in situations like this? Do you think that it sort of helps you with more gear, or is it sort of kind of like you're just opening up a new door to more complicated things?
I don't try to make it more complicated. That's definitely the opposite of what I'm trying to do.
So simple is like what you want to sort of.
Yeah, for sure. The big difference is that I have the board now.
Yeah.
And the mixing recording console, whatever.
Yeah.
And that I feel like makes everything easier, even though it's more like it's another piece of gear sort of thing. Yeah. But it's the centerpiece of the new studio now, and then this project was the first real big, like this album was the first. Oh well, no, the
Marion
the second
stuff. You had stuff from there.
Yeah, and Aftersurf was the first, but I feel like I did this before the Marion stuff. I'm pretty sure
you started. We started this before.
Yeah, I think so. I think this was the second.
The second thing went through it.
Yeah. So it was. I was still very new to like using the board and the process, and this was also one of the, like, I think it was the second project where we did everything live in here, which is now like also the kind of the main way I like to work, the main workflow.
And now here's another question. Like, I remember when we first had a phone call at the beginning of this album, like when we were just starting to sort of, okay, I have all the songs done, and I remember we had a phone call. I remember talking to you about like the direction I kind of seen this going in, and you kind of met me halfway in this, but it was like this new live off the floor thing that you've started doing, and I want to know what turns you on to that style of recording, because at first with the night we did everything track by track, where I did the bed track and then we added the drums and bass later. But what made you decide, maybe it's a good idea to start doing it live off the floor?
I don't think it was just like one thing.
could have been like many things. Because
Yeah, I think it
literally
was
a lot of the greatest albums are done live off the floor. That probably was one of the reasons.
Yeah,
why.
that was definitely one thought of mine. There was a couple of things. I had done most of my work before all multi-track, and I just really I didn't give doing live off the floor a real try. And there was just like a handful of things that kind of hit me. One, it's like when I'm working at the Capitol where I do sound for live bands. When you get like a good mix cooking in there, and there's like the band's great and all that, like that's just like what can be better than that? You know what
That's
I mean?
the truth. Like it's like magical. That's the thing about I remember when I first started playing music, and you're chasing. I remember playing at the Capitol first time. I remember that feeling is what I feel like every band kind of wants to chase. You kind of want to feel like when you're in the studio, you're playing in front of people, and I feel like you kind of want that live element brought to music. It's polish it up as much as you want, but at the end of the day, you want the magic of like seeing a band live. You want that magic, and then I think that, like you said, it's to me it seemed as though one of those things that you kind of knew all along, but it's just like there was never a moment where you're like, well, let's give it a shot. We're all here. Let's give it a shot.
Well, and getting the new studio space.
That's another thing too. Yeah.
A big part of that, because now we have the room and to do that, to get a whole band in here and to get things sort of isolated where in any room that I really worked in before, that wasn't really possible, or at least it would be a bigger challenge.
And you kind of had to like make the instrument work for the room, or make the room work for the instrument. I don't know if there's a difference between the two. I don't know if you can sort of.
Both. You can do both.
Yeah,
for sure. But the other thing I wanted to say about doing it live was there was like a bunch of things, and you're right when you say like the a lot of like the greatest records were done, the band track, like doing everything live and then doing the overdubs or whatever. But the thing that I was noticing with doing a lot of multi-track stuff is when you're working with one member, like say you're doing drums first or something, and you got your scratch tracks maybe, but there's a lot of things that you miss when you don't have everybody in the room together. And like there's been problems where it's like you track a song and then you lay down a bunch of parts, and then somebody says like, oh, this is too slow or this is too fast or something.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
And and then it's like, well, what are we gonna do? And there's a lot of ways to go around that, and I'm still learning a bunch of things, but I find the easiest way, and this kind of goes into the board too, like I'm trying to make things the least complicated as possible, and in my head it's like the least complicated thing is to do the recording the way that the band does everything else. Like you don't practice all at home and then just go play the show. When you're figuring out a new song or something, you all get in a room. Everybody in a band practices all together. So why should when we get to the recording process, then everybody has to be isolated?
Yeah.
Right? Like it's a weird, like it's basically it's this thing where like the engineer or the producer or whatever, they like I feel like a lot of people make their role too important. Where the band is important, like that's the only thing, and what like the tunes and stuff like that. So it's like for me, I'm trying to not get in the way at all.
Okay.
That's like my goal, and I just want the band to be comfy and just perform how they perform and like do their thing.
Yeah,
that's the goal, and that's the thing I try to keep in mind. But
and we're going to talk about this room again, and the beautiful thing about this room is that I find that like it really gives you a spot where you don't feel like there's a microphone in front of you. And that's one of the things that a lot of bands have a tough time with is, you practice, you're spending a lot of the time practicing, but once the microphone of a recording thing, it almost feels as though you're you're secluded and it feels like you're vulnerable. You know what I mean? But with a room like this, and when you're all together, you're sharing it, and you're not necessarily taking away from the musician's performance and stuff, because the musician sort of, to me, almost feels like you said, just a regular practice. You know, oh, I've done this before. Whereas if you take the musician away and put him in like a box, it's very easy for them to feel overwhelmed, and you're not getting the performance that, you know, their best performance, because they don't feel like they're in their best sort of environment. Whereas a room like this, you kind of can feel like you're at a practice session. You know what I mean? And it just, there's microphones around you, and it just happens that you're playing music, and it just feels like organic rather than it feeling so here.
Well, it's weird to like just when you're recording, it's so like, especially when you're just recording yourself, like there's an idea that it's just like, it's so like finite.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh, this is my guitar on this sound, or this is the sound of my guitar.
This is the final thing. Like, this is what they're going to hear. Like,
and it's like, how am I, and especially when you're doing it yourself, you're like, am I even playing this right? Or like, is this how I play guitar? Like, you know what I mean? Like, this, like these weird questions. Then you're just in your head, and then you're like, you're not in it.
Yeah, that's what I mean. That's the tricky thing, is you got to cut that out as much as possible. And I think you're doing a really successful job with doing this live off the floor thing, is because, like I said, we don't feel like we're being recorded. Like, I remember when we set up the amps in this room, the way this room, I can't really show the people who are listening to it, but we had the amps facing away the band, but the way it sounded, it almost, when you listen to it through the monitors, it almost, you could still take away you could separate the amps from the drums, and there was some bleed, but the way we mic'd it up was that there was a very minimal amount, and that's what I really enjoyed about recording in this space, was that there's place there, it's sort of set up so you can hide each instrument away from each other, but still be in the same room.
Yeah,
and share
it's really nice that the room is good for that. Like, we don't even have a lot of like, you know, things that are meant to isolate things. Like, it's really just the way it is. I mean, we have a lot of stuff in here, but like, which definitely helps. But but you're right. Like, I was very happy with the amount of like control that I could have, and you know, I wasn't fighting to like for things not to be bleeding too much.
Now, for Wonder, what was one of the main like for the whole album? Like, we talked about a theme. I know they're going to hear it and they're going to realize it quick what the theme is, like sonically. But what was one of the things that you enjoyed the most about like attacking this album? For me, I'll start it off just so you like. I liked the space we generated. We generated a good sort of wide, expansive, like, sound out of the guitars and drums. Mainly the guitars. I think the guitars is what's going to be the main thing people are going to hear. But I want to hear what you have.
I would definitely agree. The guitar sounds on the record are like definitely the shining the shining parts. They're just so good. And you know, I appreciated you and Keegan for taking the time, and and this is the same thing, like, we were all here talking about it, and we were throwing around a lot of ideas. And we were just trying stuff, and that was really fun. Like, we were having fun with it, and keeping the theme of the room. So it's like, when we were doing the guitars, like, we're a lot of the lead stuff is a lot of like room, but it's all coming from the same space, right? So it's like there's something like it blends really well, and it just.
And I feel like you're gonna hear it song after song. You're gonna hear that, okay, that's the theme. Like, song after song, there's a similarity to like the tones that we decided to go for that are very. And I think that's gonna show. And like, as far as miking, is there anything special that you did, or is it?
No, not really. It's like
we did the 3-to-1, which is like you put one at the sort of the edge of the speaker. I remember we went for that, and then one far back.
Like the room mic.
The room mic,
So we had a mic on the room always, I'm pretty sure. And then the actual amp, I think I was just like switching mics every once in a while, like whatever sometimes we were using different guitars, and I was just trying different mics, and then I think generally I was using definitely two on most of it, and then some of them I have three, but I don't know if I really used all of them.
I find one of the things that we decided to roll with too a lot was we didn't rely on after manipulation. But what I mean by that is like we didn't rely on the computer so much. We actually sat here and like twisted knobs to try to see what we can get out of like mids, highs, and lows. We understood where the bass and drums were. We didn't want to fuck with that. So the thing about it is we sat here and we turned knobs rather than relying on going into the computer later and fixing it.
Yeah,
that was the approach that I really enjoyed the most, was just sitting here being patient and twisting these things rather than I will fix it later.
We were just going for it too, which I like. It was just like the guitar amp. I remember like so many times it was so wild sounding in here, and it was like it was very loud, and that was another thing. Like we. Thankfully, we're in a place where we can be loud.
Yeah,
so we were just fucking going for it at times, and it's awesome, and it definitely translates. But that was it. We were just recording it, and then we'd play it back, and it's like, okay, that's the
that's the
what
sound
we were going for.
Yeah. And I mean, the amp selection we had was just unbelievable. I mean, we used the Fender. What was it? For the rhythm stuff, it's a lot of the Fender.
The Deluxe.
The Deluxe. I think throughout the whole record is that one amp. I think rhythm.
Because we tracked it all live, I think in 2 days, right?
Yeah, 2 days.
Or 3,
2 or 3 days.
And it was just a lot of the same setup.
Mm-hmm.
Keegan had a couple of different amps.
Yeah.
I think he only had 2 for his rhythm stuff.
I think he went for the Victoria. He had a brown Victoria amp. He did, and at the lead stuff, he went for what is it called again? A Dr. Z.
He had the Dr. Z and the Victoria.
And he had a lot of pedals and stuff like that.
Yeah. And then there was some good pedals.
But the good thing about it was like consistency. Like I said, it's just following a theme. As for like, now let's talk about like the 2-day thing. It took us 2 days to sort of get all these all the live tracks done. But mind you that the band has been performing these songs for actually, to think about it, you just jumped in last minute to record a few of these songs.
Well, there's a couple of us that jumped in.
There was Dylan Moore playing bass in a lot of the songs. You'll see all the credits, and there's a guy named James. I forgot his last name, and I'll maybe be sure to put it up there for you guys to see. James,
which I will say,
he pulled it off really well.
He really did. Yeah. It was a weird situation that we ended up in when we started it, but it all came together in the end, and the tracks that James are on, he really did a great job, and and he was like with us like the whole time. Like we were here for like, we were at it for a while. You know?
And he was still saying, and that's the thing too. And like the one thing I find as if you're out there like sort of trying to make it work, I feel like a setback shouldn't necessarily 100% set you back. And that's the one thing that I feel like what we've accomplished here was we had a setback, but we figured it out. And the good thing about James is he was skilled enough to sort of take criticism when it was needed. And that's another thing too, is how do you tell somebody that you don't like it, but nicely? How do you tell somebody like, okay, maybe we shouldn't do that?
I think we were lucky to have James, who is so like, he was such a team player.
Yeah.
And he didn't have any like
playing for himself type thing.
He didn't like. I mean, he was just kind of like, thrown into like. Well, he wasn't thrown in, but he came in.
He
willfully came in,
yeah,
but he didn't have any like preconceived things about anything.
He didn't even know any of my. He knew some of my songs, but he didn't really know anything. We had to sort of. Every song we had to tackle it right there in that moment, and so okay, this is the layout. And the good thing about him is that he actually has like papers where he'd sit there and there's like everything's broken down, so he can actually finish the song, which is really awesome. Now for the drums, what was your tactic this time compared to any other time? I think that we didn't mic everything. It was just more overheads.
No, we didn't have any tom mics.
Yeah.
it was really just overheads, and kick snare. I had a kind of like a sort of room mic that I just kind of threw somewhere, just because I had a free channel, and that kind of makes its way into some of them, but not all of them.
I think The Middle might have that. There's a song called The Middle on the record. You guys are going to hear it, but it's like it has that roomy. I don't know if maybe it might be processed. I don't know, but
no, I don't think so.
No?
I think it is. It's hard to remember now, but
but
no, the drum setup was pretty minimal, and one, I like it that way. It's the way I've been doing it for a while. But also, it's like we have 16 channels to get the whole band, right? So it's like you kind of gotta
pick and choose.
Yeah, you gotta choose what's most important, and so that was what we did.
The one song that for me I really enjoyed recording was Wonder, which is the first song. The reason being is because that whole ending was not planned, and we just decided to roll with. I think we played it. Our intentions was just to play it and it'll fade out. But what you're gonna hear is like a groove-oriented ending, and we didn't have that planned. But the beautiful thing about having Dylan Somerville and Dane in the same room is that moments like that can actually happen. Same with Keegan Dalbestein, but you just gotta. That was one of the most magical moments I find for me in this whole process of making this record, was just sort of being in that moment and open to change. And I think that's that sometimes can be important, but that sometimes could take away from, like your it can take away from the scheduled amount of time that you're in a studio. You can't let that thing always take charge. You kind of got to only be open to changing something once in a while.
Well, and that you're saying it perfectly. Like that's what doing it live is like all about. Yeah. That's exactly like the band is in here and everybody's grooving. And it's like, this is a groove. This is good. And let's keep it. Like,
why would we? And that's the thing too, is like from here on out, when you experience something like that, is like you don't want to deny yourself that potential anymore. You kind of want to once in a while, like, let's do it live. A lot of people got to understand that live off the floor is done everywhere. We just don't realize it yet because like the musicians are probably just top notch. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Some of my favorite records have a lot of songs that are live off the floor. I just didn't realize it. Yeah. So any other thing you'd like to add?
I'm excited for it to come out.
Yeah, it's been a long time. We started production, I believe, maybe a year and a half ago, maybe a year ago. We started at Keegan's Loft.
Oh yeah.
We demoed songs that are not going to be on here. Maybe in the future you'll hear them, but we've demoed some songs that just didn't make it.
For the archives, we did try this album once before.
yeah.
But it's better now.
I think it required breathing time. It needed the room. I think that. And honestly, when we did first started, I only had, I think, 6 or 7 songs written.
Yeah.
I had other songs that were drafted, but at that time I wasn't comfortable yet with like, I was just going out willfully. Like, maybe if we get the process started, it'll give me motivation to fucking finish it. But now we came into here and I had for sure 8 songs ready. I think I have more songs written ever since, but we're going to save that for later. But I originally wanted 10 songs. But when you get into a studio, and also understanding modern music, I don't think anybody has time anymore to listen more than 10 songs on a record. I think that... Now, let's get to that, actually. What do you think about track listing? Do you think that it's important to keep it to a less amount or higher amount?
It's really hard to say, and you know what, I think about this a lot, and I go back and forth all the time, and I think it's just like there's a place for both of them.
Yep.
Like it just depends. I think people who are musicians and artists generally, this is very general speaking, those are the people who like albums. They like a full piece of work that has like a beginning, middle, and end sort of thing, that you really can just sit with and live with for a while.
Yeah.
But then I feel like the like what's the word? Just like a regular music listening fan, somebody who just likes music, just listens, like that. I think those people are a little harder to pin down, and it's everybody's different. So, but I think those, just like the common kind of regular listening fan, probably, I think they just lean more to like just just listening to songs that they like. It's just like, I like this song, and then that either that's like a playlist or just like songs or whatever.
And that's the tricky thing too, is like, even as I am, when I'm just looking through, let's say Apple Music, for instance, I'm browsing through it, and I see like genres. I pick my genre and I'll go look through it. But I've always realized that it's within my nature nowadays. I don't know, it's my attention span, whatever it is, and I'll look for the star on every album. Because to me, if everybody's listening to it, and I think that that's what everybody does. Everybody's guilty of going for that star, and I think that this is the tricky thing we're facing against now as musicians or as artists, is like, maybe before the album, like after this album, I think I'm just going to take time to do singles and EPs. But maybe why don't we just always make it easier for them to listen to your music, as far as like, there's only one song that they released, let's take a listen. You know what I mean? So that it's like a continuous, like a business model that's providing for the person who doesn't have time to listen to the whole thing. You know what I mean? And I think that maybe eventually you release a single after single, it eventually can lead to an album, a collection of singles, so that you can release it and feel comfortable with it. But it's very hard to sort of appeal to everybody's interest.
Yeah, exactly. And you said it right when you mentioned like the word business model, and I think that just kind of like almost what it comes down to. It's like, I think it's worth to mention, or it's worth to think about that, like, in this age, maybe releasing the album every 2 to 3 years or whatever isn't necessarily the best or the most accessible way to get your music to people that will keep their attention.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like, I think now you want to be on people's radars more.
Yeah.
Like more often, and you want to have people kind of remembering that you're around.
Yeah,
Not
exactly.
just kind of like one big push and then you slowly fade.
Yeah.
And then you come back up, right?
Well, that's a tricky thing too, is, let's talk about what people want and what is expected. I feel like as a musician, as an artist, I remember going to a few things and a few seminars and listening to what, these festival executives or these festival scouts, and they were saying that like they really just want to see you promoting your stuff all the time. And that makes sense. It's that's obvious. But I mean, as far as product goes, I feel like this is where I can't find the middle ground. Whereas do you want to release something that is not going to be so well received, and you have all these intentions of like releasing something and hoping that it's going to be great, but considering that nobody necessarily has time for full-length albums or whatever it is, you feel like you can release this stuff. But okay, what I'm trying to say is that like what's expected for professionalism, like festivals and stuff, they want to see you promoting, making new products. Mm-hmm. But if you have a slow approach where you're going to release maybe one EP a year, do you think that is still going to be able to qualify you to fit the standards that these festival scouts want?
Yeah, this
is where it kind of gets complicated.
This is a great question, and I like this question because I hate it.
I don't know where to start. I
think what you're trying to say is like, how do you? And this is real inside baseball for like musicians and artists, but like, how do you appeal to the machine of the music industry and of like music professionals, mm-hmm. right?
Yeah.
In like, how do you best appeal to like this way, to this system where you are like working towards it at a like max capacity that they enjoy and can easily like take your stuff in the way that they want.
Yeah.
And you can kind of say this about a music listening audience too, which is what we were talking about. Like, do we do an album? Do we do an EP?
Yeah.
And these are all like, you know, good questions to have and stuff like that. But
I think
like I just want to make this point that like,
go for it.
I think like they're good questions, but man, they really suck the soul out of what it is that you're trying to do. You know
really,
what I mean? Like,
yeah. That's the truth.
I hate it. It is the truth, and it's like you know, you kind of. It's good to step back and being like, man, I just want to make music and I just want to play. I just want to like create something that's like a record that like I would have loved, like that I would love to hear, you know, like if a band put it out and you're like, man, this is exactly what I want to be hearing, you know, like. And
I was having a conversation with the drummer, Dylan Somerville. I was like, I just wish, like, my whole goal right now in life and as a musician and artist is to sort of like, I just want the people around me to hear what I hear in my head when I'm creating. I just want people to hear it. And I think that, I mean, it's great if you're a self-sufficient musician and you're looking to sort of make your own way in. I mean, I understand it, but I just want to know I always want to sort of kind of know what the process is for people to sort of pick whether or not they're appealing to the business side or are they just straightforward going into it just to make music. And like, maybe there's a moment, you know, like how you separate yourself from the work, you know, like for instance, like if you have a job, you separate yourself from the job when you get home. Maybe getting home musically is the writing side. So I'm wondering like how to effectively separate the two things where, okay, I'm in the moment of creating, where I'm not thinking about the bells and whistles. I'm more so thinking about why I'm here in the first place. You know, why am I playing guitar? Like, that's where the last, like, when I released The Night, I've realized, okay, that the push you have to continuously have. I realized it and I was like, okay, I've lost myself, but like the writing side, I've sort of not paid attention to it so much. And then I think that I've sort of, now I'm trying to figure out, okay, I'm going to release this album and I'm also going to keep trying to maintain the writing aspect, but I also want to do the promoting stuff. But I think that I'd just not cut for the promoting stuff.
Well,
I like the music stuff way more than I like the promoting stuff.
Yeah. And that's because you know, are an artist. And that's what you came in here to do.
Yeah.
And then there's all this other stuff that goes along with
the art.
And it's weird to like, when you're done an album, it's like you're like, that's it, I'm done. And it's like you're not, like, it's like then you're just on to the next part, which is like literally just trying to get people to listen to it or you know, do the tour or whatever. But
well, I think Dave Grohl said it once. He was like he was, I think Lars Ulrich, one of his podcasts, and he was saying that like, I've been spending like this last 7 months in the studio, right? Like getting it down, but then like I've never actually thought about what these songs are about. So when I'm asked, I have to like kind of, whoa, I forgot what the song is about because I'm so focused on like making the song come to life.
Yeah.
And I'm not thinking about the meaning behind it.
Right.
And I feel like that's what you're faced with after creating something is you're, okay, well, explain yourself. Why did you do it? And you kind of got to sit there and, I don't really know yet.
Yeah.
And that's the thing too. As far as writing for you, what do you think is one of the most difficult, especially let's say the Fredericton area? What do you think for upcoming artists is the hardest challenge they have to face right now?
For what, like for what?
An aspiring artist, what do you think is the hardest thing for them that they're facing?
To just try and get out there, or like what aspect? I'm kind of lost in your question there a little bit.
Yeah, it's okay. Like getting in, like for instance, getting on stage at the Cap or getting on stage anywhere, sort of thing.
Well, it's just like, it's definitely confidence in yourself.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. Yeah,
and you know, a lot of these things you just have to do it, right? Like,
yeah.
You like when you gotta like just do it to start it. Like to start a band, you just got to find the people and start the band. Hopefully you find the right people, which would be great. And then when you play your first show, like you just got to get on stage and get it done. And then maybe it doesn't go well. If it does go well, like good for you, like great.
Yeah.
It won't be like that all the time.
That's the truth though. Yeah, like I remember, and I think that like, I feel like it's healthy to have those setbacks though. I think that if you nail your first performance, I'm kind of mad at you. I'm kind of mad.
Yeah, you're great.
You're great.
Yeah,
you're already
awesome.
on
Good
your
for
way.
you.
Yeah. But anyway, this album's gonna be out soon. I think it's out from now. I think it's Saturday, which is a couple days from now. Right now, it's Sunday.
Yeah. It's a funny thing. We are really down to the wire here.
Yeah, we're just getting it all done. It's
but it's gonna get out there.
It's gonna get out there.
It's gonna be great.
Yeah, it's gonna be on Bandcamp first, and I'm gonna put it on YouTube and stuff like that. But then Spotify, I said it'll be in about a week after the date. But you can buy it on Bandcamp. I'll probably be selling it for like I think $10, $15. I don't know. How much would you sell an album for like that?
10 or 15 is a good. That's a pretty standard price.
Yeah, and the thing about this album too, we just got the artwork done. I can't wait to share that with everybody. One of the I don't know, I just can't wait till it's done. Anyway, thank you guys for listening. If you guys are tuning in, thank you, Dylan, for helping me out get this album done. I want to give shout outs to Dane Paul playing the bass, Dylan Ward playing the bass, Keegan Dobbelstein playing guitar, and myself. Well, I'm not thanking myself, but I played guitar on it too. Dylan Somerville, I might have mentioned him already, playing drums. He helped write a lot of the. Actually, Dylan Somerville wrote the beginning of Clubman Estate, the second verse of that song. He wrote that verse.
Oh, really?
Dylan Somerville wrote that.
That's interesting. I didn't know that.
Because he had a notebook around. We just started playing that song. It started off with a harmonica at the beginning of that song at first.
That's cool.
It's just acoustic, straightforward.
Why didn't we think of that?
I don't know. I just think that like we don't have that in our toolbox right now. So that
if you listen to Clubman Estate, that's the song that we're talking about?
Yeah.
If you listen to the album version of Clubman Estate and it has a harmonica on it, we got it in time.
yeah.
We got it.
We got it, man. We got it. Yeah, and James, I forgot his. I'll put his last name out there. James.
Yeah. Sorry, James.
Sorry, James, if you're listening to this. Name. Yeah. All right, thank you guys for listening. This is Quinn Bunnell and Dylan Ward chatting about music.